Let's explore whether ego dissolution could be a dangerous detour. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit that reads as follows. Experiencing partial ego dissolution and in urgent need of helpful guidance. The individual wrote, I don't usually post on Reddit, but I am in a panic. And it would be really nice for someone with more knowledge on this topic to give me some perspective. I've been doing this meditation technique, which is essentially being aware of being aware. And in hypnosis, this is known as the double bind. It started off kind of mild last night, but I got... Let's try this again. It started off kind of mild, but last night I got really deep into this and fell asleep like that. When I woke up, I felt kind of off, but shoved it aside. Out of curiosity, I continued implementing this technique throughout my day, even when I wasn't specifically meditating. I fell asleep again for a very long nap in the state, and the reason you take a long nap is because this method is exhausting your prefrontal cortex, but we will return to that. And ever since I woke up, I've been getting this feeling of dread and feeling super panicky, and depression is trying to kick in. Once again, symptoms of exhausting your prefrontal cortex. We'll continue with that. I'm not completely gone yet or anything. I'm just really confused, and I don't know what to feel. And I feel like I'm partly separating from myself. I've caught myself asking for the past few hours, like, who am I? Or double taking when I say my name to myself. This is not an uncommon thing in Tibetan Buddhism training. A tale is told of Lama giving a discourse on the conventional sense of self, and he beheld his students, and one began tugging at his upper vest with a quizzical look upon his face. He mentioned the student's name and said, he has found his conventional me. So what you're experiencing is not unheard of, and I will explore it in greater detail. I'm trying to ground and reassure myself, but it seems the more I do that, the more panic I feel. I know there's lots of things in this that are probably not in alignment with people's opinions, or maybe isn't even correct, but that's the thing. I don't know. I am confused about what's happening and need someone more experienced in this topic to explain to me what to do, because I'm holding back tears right now and I'm very scared. If anyone has experienced this or has any advice or information that can help, please do let me know, for I'm super scared and confused right now. My friend, so we shall begin with broad brushstrokes. Now, my friend, I'm sorry you endured this. And what you're experiencing is not an indictment on you. It is not your fault. Clearly, you've received bad instructions, either perhaps through printed medium or over the internet or from a questionable teacher. This is not your fault. And like a cat whose head is stuck in a bag of Doritos, trying in vain to back your way out, while all that's required is for their human companion to gently tug upon the end of the cellophane, I will happily help you back out of this. So let's begin with the peril of pseudo-intellectual shortcuts. My friends, few things create as much international peril as self-important white people. And once white folk began being exposed to the Buddha's teachings, they wasted no time enthusiastically jumping to the wrong conclusion as if it was an aerobic event, and quickly poo-pooing the teachings and twisting them in an effort to find shortcuts that lead people to sprint face first into the proverbial brick wall, which doesn't help anybody other than the pocketbook of one's plastic surgeon that you will need after such an accident. So, people have misunderstood the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings of not self have been misinterpreted as the quest for ego death, which it most certainly is not. So, we will return to this in a few minutes. Let us explore before we explore the misinterpretation of not self, let us set the scene with the yin and yang of it all. Whether we are reading the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching or simply learning about the Buddha's wicked cousin Devadatta, there are a set of attributes that do more harm than good, and these attributes are being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Those who are prone to be rigid cannot help but see figurative teachings as if they were literal, and that causes a great deal of difficulty. On the other hand, those who follow in the footsteps of Gautama, who was nicknamed the Buddha, become increasingly more and more flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. The more flexible they become, the more easy it is for them to make sense of teachings that are figurative. Teachings such as those of not self. So let me share that with you momentarily. I'm going to jump ahead here. Every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system. Let's make sure that my face isn't obscuring that image. Oh, look, it is. So let's jump over here. So every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the thoracic or ribcage region of our spinal cord. This area has evolved to notice. It has evolved to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. It has evolved to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. It has evolved to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. That can be an overwhelming amount of data. Fortunately, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord as well as the tippy top of the cervical region, known by some as either the brainstem or the reticular activation something. Sorry guys, bad recall. Anyway, this parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to both physically relax and mentally release. But how does that relate to not self? Simply this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we perceive during our previous inhalation could feel less rigid. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we perceived during our previous inhalation could feel less defining, at least momentarily. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was not us. That feeling is only temporary, just as everything else is. We live in a world in a constant state of flux. We are surrounded by sight, sound, sensation, flavor, sense, and the like that are ever changing. We experience emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings that are in a constant state of flux. So, the experience of self is temporary. The experience of not self is temporary. This is not a metaphysical truth to be believed, for belief in and of itself reinforces the fundamental duality of pushing and pulling, of dread and desire, of fear and hope. Not self is just something we experience momentarily here and there. But don't tell that to the stupid pseudo-intellectuals who think the purpose of the Buddha's path is to assassinate a sense of self. I assure you, that's not the key. That's not the goal. That's not the means. However, although the pseudo-intellectuals might not be wise, they are clever and can create analogs of ego death that can be really gum things up. So we've talked about the sympathetic nervous system that we access during our inhalation that makes perception and mindfulness possible. And we've talked about the parasympathetic nervous system that we access during our exhalation, which makes possible release and meditation. Mindfulness is the seventh fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. Meditation is the eighth fold. Together as a team, these two make possible the first through sixth folds of the Buddha's eightfold path. And all enlightenment is simply mastery of the Buddha's eightfold path. Being able to practice the eightfold path spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. So you can see how very important mindfulness and meditation are. Notice how mindfulness and meditation rely upon the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, not upon the prefrontal cortex. Now let's return to the folly of teaching a pig to sing. Way back when I was 19, I had a conversation with a gal who lived in Arkansas, and she shared with me a colloquialism that I, who had been raised in Southern California, had never heard before. She told me, "Do not try to teach a pig to sing. It'll waste your time and annoy the pig." Isn't that funny? I love that. Consider, if you will, the prefrontal cortex, this hunk of meat just behind our forehead. When we rely on discrete mechanisms within our prefrontal cortex, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and we rely upon them to actively concentrate and actively analyze, what happens if we persist in doing that is we can exhaust our prefrontal cortex, and that can cause our body to present with many of the symptoms of clinical depression. But wait, there's more. The more we rely upon our prefrontal cortex to actively concentrate and actively analyze, the more, according to fMRI studies, according to functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, the more we rely and overtax our prefrontal cortex, using it for things it has not evolved to do. The more that what lights up is this node, this amygdala, this seat of aggression and anxiety found in the metaphoric dungeon of our limbic system. So yes, relying upon what psychologists refer to, or what hypnotherapists refer to as a double bind, will exhaust your prefrontal cortex, will create symptoms of befuddlement and panic. These, as you can tell, are not beneficial. These are not joyful. These are not peaceful. And yet, the Buddha taught that joy was the fourth enlightenment factor, and that tranquility was the fifth enlightenment factor. The path of enlightenment is not paved in turmoil or despair or panic. It's paved in peace and joy. So the test of a teaching is not the popularity or wealth or beauty or charisma of the individual who taught it to you. What then is the test of a teaching? Simple. When you receive a teaching and you apply it for as little as 5 minutes every 12 hours for 7 consecutive days, notice your results. If it results in more joy and more peace, bravo, you could be very well on the right path. If it undermines your peace, if it undermines your joy, then you've probably identified a technique that is not useful to you. So most of us have been taught the rational emotive technique. Most of us have been taught cognitive behavioral therapy. Most of us have been taught self-talk. But relying on self-talk is simply relying on the further relying on the prefrontal cortex, which is already so exhausted it's panting like a dog who's been playing in the yard on a hot summer's day. That's not a good look for your brain. It's just going to exacerbate your exhaustion and sorrow and turmoil and fear. So let's use a method of grounding that will give our overworked prefrontal cortex a nice relaxing break. The fancy folks call it kama, but you and I can just refer to it as brisk walking meditation. It's super simple. Our brain is kind of like Urkel, isn't it? It means well, it's clever, but it's pretty klutzy, isn't it? And left to its own devices, it can undermine our mindfulness and our meditation. But there's good news, because our brain is not a malicious entity. It's like Urkel, sweet and clever, just a little klutzy, so we can give it direction. When we ask our brain to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, all of a sudden it begins cooperating with the wiring of our sympathetic nervous system, helping us to practice the perception of mindfulness. Similarly, when we invite our brain to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation, all of a sudden the brain starts cooperating with the wiring, the metaphoric wiring of our parasympathetic nervous system, thus making the release of meditation much easier to practice. While briskly walking around your block, and you don't want to go for a walkabout traversing the Australian countryside, which is a continent devoted to the goal of killing humans. Instead of crossing the street and getting hit by a car in a state of befuddlement, content yourself to briskly walk around your block. You can do this for 20 minutes or 40 minutes or 60 minutes, all the while during each inhalation, gently, silently, and mentally recite this. During each exhalation, silently, mentally, gently recite ease. Don't force your breathing. Don't control your breathing. Just notice your breathing. Treat your breathing the way a piano student treats the metronome. They don't control the metronome. They listen for it, and they coordinate with it. When you notice yourself breathing in while briskly walking around your block, you can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. While noticing your body exhaling, you can silently and mentally and gently recite the one-syllable verb ease. And if you're really in a tizzy, you can intermittently raise your hand over your head and snap your fingers, and then continue with this practice. Do this for 20 or 40 or 60 minutes, and you will feel like a new person. When you come home, drink a nice tall glass of water, have a snack of some healthy food, like fruit or a great big salad. If you're tired, take a nap. You've exhausted your prefrontal cortex, and our brain consumes the lion's share of glucose in our body. So if you're exhausted, there's a good reason why. I do look forward to practicing the finer details of the Buddha's path with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I do look forward to practicing the latest iteration of the Easy Meditation Practice Text. Just as a sprinter will warm up before running the race, we can play with some fun, easy, passive, gentle contemplations to limber up before we get to the serious business of mindfulness and meditation. Let us begin by bringing the 4 bases of mindfulness into the practice of love and letting go. Please chant with me. Rather than indulge or controlling tendencies with all follies of active visualization, emotion, magic, and belief, we could just recite these kind words in harmony with our breathing and allow our subconscious to do the heavy lifting. Let us sidestep the rigidity that confuses metaphors or statements literal, and relax into the flexibility that savors the chance explaining metaphors as similes. May all minds of all beings know be as peacefully enlightened as the mind of a real or imagined Buddha symbolized by a tikle, one syllable seed or bija mantra. Why are we going to work with a simile? because all complex life forms on this planet have evolved to think symbolically. And cooperating with that tendency helps the brain to quickly master the Buddha's path. One moment, if you please. So, what is the metaphoric philosopher's stone with which we transform the lead of mindless mantra recitation into the gold of mantra meditation? The answer is twofold. First, during the inhalation, we silently, mentally, and passively recite this italicized bit, which is the distilled version of that which we just chanted. During part 2, during our exhalation, we physically relax as best we can while striving to chant this mantra 4 times per breath. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung 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 Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung. Let us begin with another loving intention. May all relationships, all speech of all beings now be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddha's communication symbolized by the 12-syllable mantra. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung 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 Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mema Siri Hung. Together, let us perform another loving recitation. May all bodies or forms of all beings know and ensure the beautiful, Halcyon and Buddhist statuary, depicting the blissful body of a real or imagined deity or yedom, an archetype of enlightenment such as Kwantu Zangpo. Om Ahum Benzaguru Mimaziri Hung. 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 As we sit before the specter of the real needs of people we love, relatives, neighbors, relatives of neighbors, we could sit here and say, how can my words and intentions magically heal others? Here's the answer. We don't have to believe it will. We don't have to visualize that it will. Simply playing with these intentions and these sounds is like a workout for the neural pathways responsible for empathy. If all we do is exercise our empathetic potential, that in itself is a victory. Om Ahum Benzaguru Mimaziri Hung. 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 Together. May all circumstances or lots of all beings know how their good fortune or boon, as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land or volunteer. Om Ahum Benzaguru Mimaziri Hung. 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 Om Mahum Benzo Guru 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 Mimaziri Hung. Now, let us bring the same four bases of mindfulness into the figurative path of the rainbow body. Excuse me. Together. All visible circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. Please notice how melting functions as a metaphor of impermanence and how absorption functions as a metaphor of interdependence. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite "seen lots amount." As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite "into form." Now, what I'd like to do is practice 4 rounds of this exercise, remembering that a round is simply 1 inhalation and 1 exhalation. We can count these 4 rounds on our left hand, advancing the tip of our left thumb during each inhalation, beginning with our left little finger. Remember, our job is not to visualize. If all we do is silently, mentally, and passively recite these words in harmony with our breathing, we will grow in wisdom. Together, all sensual bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communication or speech. Let us continue, this time counting upon our left ring finger. Together, all resounding interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. Let us continue, this time counting upon our left middle finger. Together. All lucid minds could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although tantalizing to the eye could be not graspable to the hand. Lucid here just means our minds are capable of perceiving, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. Together, let us count upon our left index finger. So, thus far, we have been playing with counting a total of 16 rounds upon our left hand, upon our 4 left fingers with the help of our left thumb. That's lovely. But did you know that on your right hand you could keep track of those sets of 16? We've already counted 16 breaths with the mantra, and we've counted 16 rounds with the silent contemplation. What we can do next is count an additional 14 sets of 16 rounds of the practice. Of bringing whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and letting go. The practice that we explore during this evening's opening lesson. The practice that is the essence of the mindfulness and meditation that not only comprise the 7th and 8th folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, but which is the dynamo which makes the mastery, no less practice of that path, possible. As silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we can kick back and watch the antics of minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. As silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. Even though I was holding my hand up before the camera previously, I found it to be most ergonomically sound to rest our hands in our lap. Every time we breathe in, we are already wired to generate a vertical traction between our tuchus and our head. Every time we exhale, we are already wired to relax that traction. No, we don't need to force it. All that we need to do is step out of our own way and allow our body to do what it has already evolved to do. Our practice, our contemplation of love and letting go, with or without mantra, comprises the second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Our practice, our figurative practice of rainbow yoga, was our exercise of the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Having completed our first circuit, let's now begin our second, returning to love and letting go. May all minds of all beings know be as peacefully enlightened as the mind of a real or imagined Buddha, symbolized by a tikle one syllable zero bija mantra. Let's review the meaning of the 12-syllable mantra. There are many explanations. This one is mine. I invoke teachers from action on meditation in whom view that the Benza Tantra Guru teaches pay my enlightenment and city abilities whom may be mastered by all. You know, I think it would be better if I actually moved this over yonder. Let's put this, let's hit cut. Yes, I think this is better right here. Ah. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum 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 Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum. So here's the key. Here is the metaphoric philosopher's stone that transforms the worthless lead of mindless mantra recitation into the valuable gold of productive mantra meditation. During the inhalation, please silently, mentally, and passively recite this italicized bit. During our exhalation, please physically relax as best you can while striving to chant this mantra 4 times per breath. If this is your first time, please give yourself permission to have a learning curve. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum 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 Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum. May all relationships, all speech of all beings now be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddha's communication symbolized by the 12-syllable mantra. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hum. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri maziri hum. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hung. 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 May all bodies or forms of all beings now enjoy the beautiful Helsinki Buddhist statuary, depicting the blissful body of a real or imagined Devi or Yadam, an archetype of enlightenment such as Kuntu Zangpo. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hung. 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 May all circumstances or lots of all beings now have the good fortune or boon, as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land of Avanti. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri Hung. 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 Again, let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the figurative practice of the rainbow body. All visible circumstances, all lots could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into a rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. All sensual bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communication or speech. All resounding interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. All lucid minds. So lucid here just means, oh, I already covered that. Never mind. All lucid minds could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be as not graspable to the hand. Again, let us bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and letting go. together. In our compassion may we long to free all beings from the toxic tyranny of ever. Hating, craving, and clinging, metaphorically known as the three mental poisons. In our pragmatism may In our pragmatism may our liberation of all others be fueled by your reliance on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students, described by the metaphor of the three wish-fulfilling jewels. If you wish, you're welcome to do some light calisthenics with me, for we have sat for the better part of an hour and a half, and you might find it to be refreshing. I think it was more like 75 minutes rather than 90 minutes, and I'd rather be inaccurate than deceptive. May we free all from thee with the three jewels. May we free all with thee or through thee three jewels. May we free all 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 through thee 3 joules. Whew. Well, that was invigorating, wasn't it? Let us seal the practice by chanting love and letting go's wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. May all minds of all beings lucid yet void now be as enlightened as the Buddha's mind symbolized by a one-syllable bija. May all speech of all beings resounding yet void now be as loving as the Buddha's speech symbolized by a multi-syllable mantra. May all forms of all beings sensual yet void now be as healthy as a Yidamokta depicted in Buddhist statuary. May all lots of all beings appearing yet void now be as fortunate as a pure land of law represented in Buddhist paintings. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.